On behalf of the Confederation of Wearable Exporters of the Philippines, or CONWEP, allow me to congratulate DOST Secretary Fortunato de la Peña, Undersecretary Director Cristina Guevara, and DTI Undersecretary Fita Aldaba for inviting me to be part of the 5th NRDC event. Today, I am pleased to present the story behind the DTI Manufacturing Repurposing Project called the Local Production of Medical Grade PPE Coveralls. The Manufacturing Repurposing Program to produce medical grade PPE is a collaborative effort of key government agencies led by the DTI and BOI, DOH, and PGH. The program was instigated around end March this year to address the deficient supply of PPEs during the height of COVID-19. DTI Secretary Ramon Lopez approached CONWEP on the feasibility of exporter manufacturers to repurpose and produce PPE. The Bayanihan PPE project was born with three key objectives as follows. First and foremost was to protect the lives of medical frontliners. Second was to protect the jobs in the apparel's export industry. At that time, the global demand for apparel, shoes, and bags were down by 50% during the first quarter of 2020. Repurposing in the export manufacturing sector can actually save around 7,000 workers in the industry. Third reason was for national security to reduce import dependence on critical PPEs. At the time, Secretary Lopez's vision was to ensure the national security by setting up our own local PPE facilities. This would also cut dependency on imports, save our foreign reserve, and ensure that at any given time we have our own supply as a nation. Who repurposed? CONWEP actually represents exporters and manufacturers of high-end wearables for global brands. Majority of our member investors operate clusters of 4 to 8 factories with an average size of 1,500 to 3,000 workers per factory. Who are these that repurposed? There are 3 investor groups who heeded the request of DTI within CONWEP. The group represents 10 factories with a total workforce of 31,500 direct workers. All 3 members have the infrastructure logistics set up with offices in China, Korea, and Taiwan. Important to note, though, is that these 3 factories repurposed only a portion of their existing manufacturing capacity. On an average, each investor group allocated around 12 to 15% of their workforce and around 5 to 8% of their production line or space-wise to the manufacture of PPEs. The Reliance producer NST Group tapped its international network of supply chain to source the medical grade PPE coveralls by the third week of March. RPC NST sourced and tested the fabric and began importing the fabric for the prototype's production. By March 28, a prototype sample based on a PGH sample design was submitted to the DTI BOI for DOH testing. By mid-April, the first 200,000 meters of fabric arrived immediately the factories of the RPC NST Group and started the production of PPE coveralls. RPC NST could produce 10,000 pieces of medical grade coveralls, which was turned over to the DTI BOI for DOH PGH as part of the Bayanihan 2 coveralls event last April 22. RPC NST was able to set up the first factory compliant with the regulatory standards of FDA. The seam-sealed coveralls and gowns also went through various technical testing standards done by the SGS, Intertech, and passing the highest level 4 compliance. The other 2 are in the process of completing the factory setup and compliances with the regulatory requirements of the FDA. The aggregate capacity of these 3 member groups are 10 factories, and they can produce 1 million PPE coveralls and isolation gowns a month. And if the need arises, the group can produce 2 to 3 million pieces per month. Joining the RPC NST, Luantai International Group, and the LHK Group are other industry players in various sectors such as EMS Components Assembly, Incorporated from the electronics industry, TACA Philippines, an Australian group in Laguna from the food packaging industry, and Medtex International Corporation Limited, the very first producer of medical surgical masks in the Philippines since 1989. Together, they founded and established the Confederation of Philippine Manufacturers of PPE, or CPMP, an affiliate of CONWEP. CPMP now has 6 members, with IMI, or the Integrated Microelectronics Incorporated Group, an electronics arm of the Ayala Group of companies, and they are producing ventilators. Our focus remains to sustain and preserve jobs in the export manufacturing sectors as we build up the local capacity for this emerging sector. We stand by the government's call to repurpose and produce competitively priced and quality medical grade PPEs. We are thankful for the valuable support of the DTI, BOI, DOH, and PGH, and hopefully, with further government support, we can establish a strong and sustainable local supply base to mitigate the long-term health and economic impact during this pandemic and beyond.